because Brent got out for the day.
How many of you have done photo of the day? How many of you haven't? Get all those names, Luis. Luis is a colleague of mine, and he asked me to do thought of the day, and of course I said yes. And then I think, shit, what am I going to talk about? So next time you ask me, say, what are you going to talk about, Brent? Anyway, it's amazing how things happen. So I found something to talk about. I always do. This week is Suicide Prevention Week. And the intention of the week is to promote suicide prevention and awareness, just not here in the United States, but throughout the world. In fact, the whole month of September is actually around Suicide Prevention Week. Here's some facts for you. 47,500 Americans die by suicide each year. For every death by suicide, there are 25 suicide attempts. 78% of people who die by suicide are men, so amongst men the rate is very high, and 90% of teens who die by suicide have mental health conditions. In a study conducted by Washington State University, people who had spent time in prison in Washington State were 62% more likely to die by suicide than people who had not been in jail. The risk of suicide increased with the number of times a person had been in prison. Those who had been in prison once had a 42% increased risk, twice a 67% increased risk, and 3 or more times 113% increased risk. This study tells us that suicide awareness and prevention is a great opportunity within our community. I'm sure if I went around the room today, many of us, and myself included, have experienced depression. My mother passed away 3 years ago, and I had no idea how hard that would hit me. Over the following 2 years, I went through some very dark times and had some very dark thoughts. And yes, at times, I considered the value of my life and whether it was all worth it. So what got me through those times in my life? I have been very fortunate to build beautiful, strong relationships. And it was through my connections and connectedness that I am now in a much better place. Through my connectedness and relationships, I was able to practice gratitude. And ultimately, the deep appreciation of my friends and family is what really brings meaning to my life. For most individuals, gratitude is something we talk about once a year, in November and Thanksgiving. We sit around a table and we usually discuss what it is we are genuinely grateful for. These can often be awkward moments requiring us to lower our armor and be vulnerable. However, those moments around the table can be heartwarming, and once everybody is shared, we often feel much closer to the people around us at that table. So, there is overwhelming evidence that gratitude is physically, emotionally, and mentally sound. In addition, research shows that practicing gratitude correlates to better sleep, increased creativity, and decreased hostility and aggression. Robert Emmons, who is the world's leading scientific expert on gratitude, he writes, "The positive emotions wear off quickly. Our emotional systems like newness. They like novelty, they want to change. So we adapt to favorable life circumstances, but they don't last for long. The new car, the new space, the new whatever, doesn't keep us seem to be very appreciated for very long. However, Eamon goes on to say that gratitude is different. When we practice gratitude, it makes us appreciate the value of something. We extract more benefits from it, we are less likely to take it for granted, and the emotion is much longer lasting. While gratitude is an emotion, to experience its full power, we must also turn it into a practice, a habit. To fully experience gratitude, we must be brave enough to take down our armor. Vivian talked about Brené Brown yesterday, and I'm a huge fan of Brené Brown. And she wrote a book called Dare to Lead, and in it she talks about armor and being daring. And when we have our armor on, we protect ourselves. But when we take that armor off, it requires us to be daring. I'm sure you've all heard the phrase attitude of gratitude, but the part attitude is merely a thought. If you practice gratitude, you are doing it trying it, and yes, even failing. Ultimately, immense belief in practicing gratitude allows us to participate more in our lives. Noticing our blessings naturally enables us to celebrate goodness instead of adapting to it. I started this thought of the day by highlighting suicide awareness. So what's gratitude got to do with it? Connectedness and building solid relationships are known to be preventable solutions for suicide. Through strong connectedness, we can practice gratitude. While practicing gratitude is not the solution for everything, it can enrich our lives in meaningful ways. And as with my story, support us through the challenging journey of life. Thank you.